Hi everybody, I want to start with telling you a story about a little boy. We have a little boy that once lived on a farm who suffered severe abuse from his dad. And one day while he was working in his father's barn, he fell off a very high spot in the barn onto his back and landed on a large knife that was on the floor. The wound, the stab wound in his back was so deep and large that he was bleeding out profusely. His lung had been punctured, and his father walked into the barn, looked at the son lying down on the floor and just told him, "That's what you get," and turned on his heel and walked out. Many years later, that little boy grew up and had a wife and family of his own. Like many people who have been physically abused, he repeated that pattern of abuse, physically and emotionally, with his wife and with his children. This went on for many years. The youngest of the girls was often tasked with cleaning the kitchen. That was one of her chores. And she was small and had to climb up on the kitchen counters because she was too little to reach the cabinets to put things away or to retrieve items. So one evening while she was putting the dishes away, she climbed up on the counter, as she had to put some items away, and she slipped and fell. She was standing on the counter and slipped and fell. And she landed onto the open dishwasher door, which had the bottom rack out. And she landed on the spines of the lower drawer. She lost all of the breath in her lungs. Gasping for air, she managed to roll off of the dishwasher door onto the kitchen floor. About the same time, this dad walked into the kitchen from an adjacent room and asked her what had happened. She was gasping for air and finally managed to groan out what had happened and asked him to help her. He looked at her on the floor, looked at the dishwasher rack that was broken and the dishwasher door that was laying on the floor, and said, "That's what you get." We deal with stories like this all the time at youth court. The important points of this story are the father and the little boy, the same person. He never healed from the childhood abuse that he had suffered. He remained a victim his entire life and repeated what his dad had done to him with his own wife and children. The little girl grew up, and it's me. Sorry. I have managed not to repeat the sins of my father. So I stand before you today not a victim, but a survivor. This is why I'm running for this seat. I have a story to tell. I have strength inside of me that I can share with other people, and have for 15 years. I have served as the attorney for neglected and abused children in Harrison County for 15 years. As Dan told you earlier, I've been married for 29 years to the same person. I have been blessed with 2 children of my own. They are 23 and 13, respectively. I have overcome my circumstances. I was blessed with a wonderful mother and a wonderful grandmother and an older sister who, despite my father's abusive behavior, loved me and was able to comfort me and to surround me with that love and support. And that is why I have survived. I am stronger because of what I have been through. And I can relate to so many of the children that we deal with in youth court. I was never removed by the system. When I grew up, I'm old enough that when I grew up, CPS, DHS, OCS, they wouldn't have been called for something like that. I remained in my home, which was where I needed to be, loved by my mother, loved by my sister, loved by my grandmother, loved by my brother-in-law. Over the course of my life, I have been preparing for the job that I am now seeking. Everything that I have been through, crawling to my mother's room that night because she didn't hear what had happened. She was already in bed. And I had to crawl from the kitchen to her bedroom on the other side of the house, asking her for help. Even when I could only crawl, I have crawled through my life to get to this point. and I am ready for the seat that I now seek. I have training and experience that none of the other candidates have. I have knowledge of our families, I have knowledge of the CPS system, and I have knowledge of the law. I have used that training and that knowledge over the years to train attorneys in continuing legal education classes. I have consulted with attorneys on their cases. I have trained paralegals. I currently train volunteers with CASA, and I have been an adjunct faculty member at a local university. I've essentially spent my entire life preparing myself for this point. If I can leave you with one message today about my candidacy, other than the fact that I would appreciate your vote, it's this: children and families can survive and don't have to perpetuate the sins of their elders. The pattern of abuse and neglect can be broken before the adverse effects cause children to act out and become delinquent, or before parents commit crimes, or both children and parents continuing the poor examples that have been set before them. You can overcome. I have. And that's the message that I intend to send to the citizens of Harrison County, the families, the parents, and the children, if I am elected to this position. I thank you all for coming this evening.